Joining us live from New York is Latvian Foreign Minister Baiba Braže. Foreign Minister, welcome back to the show. Wonderful to see you. We are monitoring, as you can imagine, two big stories here on the show, and I will get to Ukraine. But first, let me get your reaction to what we've been hearing. Something that correspondent just mentioned there is that the Israeli army chief says it's preparing for a possible ground incursion into Lebanon. This as Israel and Hezbollah continue to trade waves, forcing thousands of civilians to flee their homes. Just your reaction to what's playing out in the Middle East and whether you think we're in the brink, really, of an all-out war.
I think there are several layers to all of that. Of course, Israel does have the right to self-defense, and that was after the 7th of October attacks that was stated publicly. We all want to see the ceasefire with regard to the current situation to enable the help to civilians that are suffering. And of course, the attacks from Hezbollah on Israeli territory are not acceptable. The barrage of rockets, as you just said, is something that is happening. And we cannot ignore it. In the same time, of course, nobody wants to see further escalation. So I think there is a lot of effort going on currently. I know there is a lot of effort going on currently to try to de-escalate the situation and prevent further difficulties in the region. Yeah. Let's put it that. It's an understatement, of course.
Let's talk through those efforts then, because the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said today that his country will not rest until its northern residents can return home. You heard our correspondent, we're talking about 60,000 Israelis who haven't been able to go back home for almost a year. We've also heard from the Israelis that the strategy seems to be escalate to de-escalate. I mean, one, what do you think of that strategy? Do you think it's going to work? And also, at what cost, Foreign Minister?
Listen, I don't want to comment on specific statements of certain leaders one way or the other. I think there is what is important, that there is the off the record, behind the scenes, big effort going on to try to find solutions that doesn't bring further hostilities but de-escalation, and we fully support those efforts.
I understand you don't want to comment on what we heard from the Prime Minister, but let me ask you this. Do you think a ground invasion by Israeli troops can force Hezbollah to back down, can change the dynamics in the region?
Again, I don't want to comment on speculative statements or type of ideas that circulate one way or the other. What is important is for everyone to put a thought in and a work and a practical effort to make sure that further hostilities are avoided. Having said that, obviously both on the Israeli side and Lebanese side, again the individuals, again civilians are affected, and whatever is the right to defense, self-defense, or whatever the situation, the civilian rights to exist peacefully and live their lives have to be respected. International humanitarian law applies also in these situations. We are also, as Latvia, members of UNIFIL, of the United Nations peacekeeping operations. So UNIFIL is something that many countries contribute to. They are there on the line between both countries. So there are various layers to all of the situations. So let's try, at least by our efforts, by our words, to try to keep that peace and try to keep that sort of level of hostilities, to turn it down, not up.
Yeah, and we know, we've been hearing from the United States, in fact, from Alex Marquardt, our correspondent in New York, you're basically saying the US is working urgently, we've been told, on a plan to de-escalate tensions between Israel and Hezbollah. But let me leave that for just a second and focus on Ukraine. We are waiting to hear, Foreign Minister, a victory plan for President Zelensky. Today, we didn't get much in terms of that detail, but we expect this to include potentially discussion on Kyiv's long-stated request for long-range missiles like ATACMS to strike military targets inside Russia. Do you believe the US will back this? And do you think this, coupled with perhaps more incursions into Russia, will bring about a victory?
Ideally, we see that on the battlefield. I really don't care about the statements. I don't care about reflections in the media. I would like to see on the battlefield that Ukraine has the ability to strike those airfields where the Russian planes take off to bomb Ukrainian civilians, where large hubs of logistics or fuel or others equipment, material is gathered, and from where Russia supplies its occupation troops in Ukraine. Remember, it's a country that is attacked. It's a victim. We need to help it, and we need to help it to self-defend.
Yeah, and of course, worth reminding viewers that Ukraine is facing a third winter, and today we heard President Zelensky saying that Russia is stepping up strikes on Ukraine's energy grid, right, in a bid to plunge the country
Correct.
into what he called
Correct.
dark and cold winter. Speak to the pressures here, Foreign Minister. What pressures can be applied? Because I remember reading that you have been calling for further sanctions.
We will go on with further sanctions very clearly. We have to lower the oil price to decrease income in the Russian budget, because about a third of the Russian budget is from various natural resources, be it oil or gas. So lowering the oil price is essential to decrease the ability to finance a war on the Russian side. It's not a lethal, it's not some type of escalatory measure. It's a pretty straightforward economic action that should be done. Banning shadow fleet vessels carrying oil, resupplying, then back to Europe. So there is a whole set of measures that can be done unilaterally or multilaterally, and that need to be done. But also continuing to help Ukrainian people with various generators, transformers, other civilian help. If countries can't provide military help, or if organizations can't provide military help, they can do that to the civilians. And again, that's in every person's interest to make sure that this country survives this winter and that it's victorious on the battlefield. We are standing here for the underdog then.
Foreign Minister, appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome.